Tym razem na scenę zaprosimy Wojtka Jaworskiego, czyli CEO Huciao. Ty to pewnie, Weronika, wypowiesz za chwilę nieco lepiej po angielsku, słusznie i poprawnie. Spółki, która zajmuje się marketingiem gier z zachodniego rynku na największy rynek graczy, czyli rynek chiński. Wojtek przyprowadził też kilku gości, z tego co wiem, także oni zaraz na scenie, ale najpierw angielsko-chińska wersja, jak zgaduję.
Of course, of course. So ahead of us we have one more conversation to have, and I might be a little bit biased talking about it. We all know why, you can just look at my t-shirt, but obviously we're going to talk about the future of gaming, which is not something that obvious that everyone talks about. So let's welcome to the stage our CEO and founder, Wojtek Jaworski, and his amazing guests, which I had the pleasure of working with, so listen to that one.
The stage is yours. Wojtek. Hi everyone.
你好。有会说中文的人吗？太好了。Okay, awesome. So if we establish that we already have some people that speak Chinese in the audience, that's amazing. So a little bit of background before I invite my esteemed guest to the stage to discuss, well, future of gaming, but frankly, I think the future of the whole entertainment industry and the marketing industry. Well, what Huciao essentially is we are a firm that works with game developers, mostly right now Western ones, marketing their games into China, using Chinese social media platforms, talking with Chinese influencers, and being very close to the trends that are, well, that will soon, and that's one of the theses that I want to cover today, are going to be the prevailing ones globally. So, moving on and moving to inviting our esteemed guest. Our guest is Michał Gębicki, who happens to be a game video industry veteran. He essentially has 20 years of experience working in game dev. Well, let's welcome Michał to the stage. Alright, before we move into the conversation, let me set some ground rules. So I want this to be actually a three-way conversation, and there will be some freebies for all the people that, from the audience, that will participate in that conversation, meaning that during our discussion, if you, for example, strongly disagree with something, raise your hand, ask question, or participate in the debate.
I thought you would say leave, but okay.
That's also one of the options, but you wouldn't want that, right? So also, if you think that gaming is for kids, gaming is not for you, that you shouldn't really, well, that you couldn't really use gaming as a channel to reach your audiences, then it's exactly the right spot for you to be in right now. So, without further ado, let's dive in. So, Mike, actually, what got you into gaming?
Well, before I answer, first of all, thank you, Wojtek, for inviting me here, and all the Tigers as well. It's always amazing to be a part of such meetups with other industry representatives, because we don't get too often to cross our paths between video games and, let's say, the bigger businesses from the older perspective, not to insult you too much. So, about myself, you may take a look at me. I'm a bit of a boomer, especially as for the video games industry, which because I'm 45 years old, so I'm kind of almost, at the end. I should be at the end of the career rather than at the beginning. But 25 years of these 45 I spent developing, publishing, marketing video games. So that makes me kind of at least eligible a little bit to discuss that topic. I started with not that far away from here, actually. There was a huge flea market at Grzybowska Street, which was called Giełda Warszawska, and it was the first Polish incubator, right? That I won't name by name, but I've met so many CEOs of the current Warsaw Stock Exchange listed company, CEOs over there, that that would take me some time to list them. So I started also there with my first 8-bit Atari computer. And now, almost 5 years later, I went through ordeal of Warsaw Stock Exchange. From smaller, bigger teams, I was a part of CD Projekt as well, with the amazing Witcher series. And I can tell you only that I think still video games industry, and I can challenge anyone, is the most exciting industry in the world. So let's talk about it today.
Whoa, that's a bold statement, but I like it. So would you say that games are the medium for the 21st century? And if so, then why?
Well, that's like no-brainer, right? That definitely is, right? So just to shoot with a couple of numbers first. The video games industry at the moment is roughly $300 billion worth, right? And it is still growing. And if you even compare it with any other industry from the same genre, let's call it an entertainment, then the music and movies altogether is not even $100 billion worth. So you could see already a huge disproportion between the gaming and the rest of the entertainment, especially coming from the difference, which is a consumption, which is first and the only medium that is so interactive, and that's one of the key pillars of a success of this industry. There's roughly 3.5 billion gamers around the world, which makes it 40% of all the global population is calling themselves gamers. So my assumption is that whatever business you're working for, gamers are already your customers, clients, or users of the brands or products that you're using, you're producing or advertising. So a little bit addressing this question about is it worth it? It is worth it, right? Because almost every second person should be a gamer. I'm not sure how about you guys here, but I'm sure that some of you for sure played games, right?
Yeah.
So
that's actually a good question.
Yes, this one, good.
Yeah. In the audience, how many of you consider yourselves gamers? Please raise your hands.
Right on. Yeah, this time it's worth. Yeah, it's worth. I know lots of mommies were saying they don't play games because you're gonna not succeed in the future. My mom was saying the same, but this time she was mistaken.
Chinese parents do it too. Yeah, but to give some additional data, and I think it would be really useful if we could show some examples, maybe some case studies for everyone here to actually prove that, right? That you can use games as a channel, as a distribution channel, as a medium to reach your target audience, even if we're talking about silver generation, for example, or the surprising industry.
Yes, so indeed, for a lot of time, whenever I'm participating in any meetings with representatives of non-gaming businesses, I always got challenged that the gamers are either nerds living in the basement, right? You visualize that black-dressed guy, no life, spending spending his no life in the basement playing World of Warcraft. Or the other more maybe bright perspective is those are the kids, whatever the kids are, right? So they just play games, and that's it. Well, that is not true, because again, if you consider 40% of overall population are gamers, that means gamers are now all ages, all demography, all genres, whatever, right? So with the certain growth of so-called silver gaming, which means people 35 plus, which we already call super old, right?
35, you said?
35 plus.
That's silver?
Absolutely, that's super silver. I would say it's grey even, right? Grey silver.
I feel like silver.
Yeah, well, it's a nice name for old, but yeah, but still. So still those silver gamers are now important because, of course, from the marketer's perspective, those guys finally have money They don't have time, but they have money, so now they can buy these games. But still, of course, we can't forget about the young ones. They are still there, right? As we talked already about Gen Z or Gen X, or whatever. Everyone is basically playing just different games. So I always challenge this model that gamer is like one persona. It's not. All of us are gamers. Same as you can't say that someone watches movies or reads books, right? It's like we read different books, we watch or attend different movies. So that's about the same case with games. But then answering giving you the example of let's say various usages of brands, for example, right? Because you probably are the most interested how you can use gaming for the purpose of promoting your brands or products. Imagine really exotic industry, tractors, right? Farmers, you guys producing tractors, super heavy tractors for harvesting fields and stuff like that. What does it have in common with gaming? Like almost nothing, right? But still, one of the most popular video games in the industry, it's called the Farming Simulator, has all the machines in it realistically depicted, with even the sounds recorded in the original factories, like New Holland, John Deere, all these brands are there.
Or even Ursus.
And I was actually, yes, because like out of the millions of the fans, they were all very keen to use the old brands. Not only from Poland, also from our US, for example, and they were all really looking forward to see and find some ancient brand called Ursus one time, right? Because there's two cool Ursus tractors, C30, 330 and 350, and we talked with Ursus by that time, who was actually making a debut on the new Connect, and we implemented that in Farming Sim, and it generated this huge buzz, right? Yeah, go ahead.
How about their sales? Because you're saying that you implemented Ursus tractors into tractor simulators, but I feel like people that work on tractors or buy tractors do not use the tractor simulators. Like,
very good question. By the way, you just got yourself a freebie.
All right. So no, that's wrong. People that use tractors have families, for example, right? They don't just doing all the time tractoring. So they have families, and who was playing Farming Simulator were mostly young people living in the families of farmers. And for example, these families were having regular tractors. Tractors can be anything from millions of dollars per one to a very small ones. And then it was the same effect as with cars, right? You can't have Porsche for yourself, for example, but you can have this super exotic, very uncommon tractor in the game, and you can finally farm it with it, right? So this was like branding towards future clients, future customers, and I think this really worked well because you established your brand among top brands. For example, for Ursus, which was an old brand that was revived by that time, it was important to be listed among New Holland, John Deere, Zetor, like top of the mind brands for tractors. And with video game, they achieved that in a way.
I guess my question is, did you manage to track any sales influence when it comes to Ursus appearing in that game?
That would be the question to Ursus guys. I was the game guy, right? So I just tracked the success of the game, which was great, right? So then lots of people bought it from the sentimental perspective, I think, especially in Poland, because Ursus was a Polish brand. But I can just tell you that every year Farming Simulators developer is Giant Software, it's a Swiss company, is attending any video games show, and they always put a tractor there, which is always the top-notch model from each of the year's edition brand that added, like this New Holland, for example. Like even now in Poznań, there will be this huge, GPS automated tractor put there, and everyone loves to make a photo with this tractor. Like, this is so cool marketing for them, right? So yeah, I would say that probably impacted the sales, but for sure the image.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, and actually there are many other examples, like even Euro Truck Simulator, and actually other brands such as
Energizer, for example. Right? So there's tons of these examples that you can say. Energizer batteries were used in a game called Alan Wake. It's a horror game about mostly about a guy moving with a light, with a light, not with a lighter. It's called light, yeah.
Flashlight.
Flashlight, exactly. That's the word I used. So with the flashlight, and when he uses the flashlight, he sees whatever terrors. And of course, then he was exchanging the batteries, and it was always Energizer, right? So then you kind of have this association. You love this game. You spend, how much time you spend with movie? It's 2 hours maybe. With TV, a couple of hours. With game, 15 hours daily. That's okay, right? Almost, right? So if you're really into it, well, maybe not with Alan Wake, but let's say so. So yeah, so the exposition to this brand, I think overall with the games is extremely long, right? Because you Wojtek, you know how much time do people spend on games.
I mean, the first month I played, I was the nerdy guy playing WoW at some point.
In the basement.
Yeah, maybe not in the basement, but like 1/5 of my first month was actually spent playing WoW. So the fact that people interact with the brand while playing games and feeling euphoric because of playing games is a good basis to build a brand association upon, right?
Absolutely, it's great for just making people interact with the brand and with the product that they would never afford, for example. Another case, you mentioned the Euro Truck Simulator, another very unknown game about driving trucks, right? So you can think that people that are truck drivers, they would never play truck driving game because they spend a week driving the trucks. So why would they spend time on playing? That's wrong. 90% of them played the game because when they were driving this truck on one trail half of their life, they wanted to go through Brenner Passage to Austria, for example, just to see something different with this huge new truck that their company couldn't afford. And of course, the children, the sons, the whatever daughters, they played with them. So now if you are Scania, DAF, or MAN, you already influence these young people, so they know what is the best truck in the world, right? This is Scania, for example.
So summarizing this part, I don't know how we are standing with time, but to cover also, to summarize this part, essentially the first point is, regardless of how old your target audience is, you can reach them through gaming. Almost half of the population plays. Right now, time spent on gaming amounts for around 2%. And the predictions, like global population as to, time spent on sleeping, time spent on doing other stuff, 2% of the time, total global population is spent on gaming, but the predictions say that it will go up to 6% by 2030. So this is one of the fastest rising industries. But there is another topic that I want to talk about with you, and that is, shift in global IP dynamics, or which way the wind of change and the trends are flowing. So would you say that gaming is the place for strategic competition between the two global powers right now?
Yeah, I mean, it's mostly, almost, I would say, everywhere. Of course, there is a big competition between China and the US with the fact that, for example, of course, historically, US is a leading market for video games production, with the biggest brands there, like Activision, Blizzard, the big names of the industry. But the numbers are with the Chinese now, right? With approximately 1.7 billion gamers just from Asia overall, and that's what say.
Yeah, and 680 million from
China mainland, more or less. That makes this #1 language used on Steam, for example, at the moment. So of course, if you think about commercial success, you need to at least localize your game. That's one thing, but it's already not enough, because they expect the game to be also adjusted from the perspective of the content towards them, because they are in the middle of the world, and they hope that the gamers, that the game developers will notice that. Just some examples for that as well.
And actually, that's a very good point to pause our discussion here for a moment and invite all Huqiao team members that are right now in the audience to stand up and show yourselves to the audience, because when it comes to gaming and to China, we could talk about it for, I think, hours. And if you want to continue these conversations, you can, reach out to Michał, me, or any of wonderful people in Huqiao team. So I invite you to continue the conversations later on or during the networking event. Thank you. So let's continue here. So yeah, with 680 million players. And recent launch of Black Myth Wukong, which was one of the first AAA games from
It is
China.
the most played PC game on Steam at the moment, #1, absolutely.
Yeah. So would you say what would be your predictions for the future as far as how is China going to change the game?
Well, that's for sure a huge market, right? So far it was always considered that gaming is a global market, right? So if you produce video game, you should rather address general global perspective and never focus on a local market because it's too small. That was one of the obstacles for us in Poland, for example, right? So there was, of course, a temptation to add a Polish-centric content to the game, but then it was more of a kind of a drop for the rest of the world, and we were too small market. But with China, you don't have that, right? Because out of this, I don't know how many units they sold.
20 million in the first month.
20 million in the first month, right? So out of that, probably
80% of...
Yeah, I would say so.
Yeah.
75-80% was sold in China.
Yeah.
So, you can make a video game just for this market, single one, because why not, right? I mean, everyone would be happy with such a score globally, not to mention just one country. So yes, the China is one on the rise. It's also on the transition. Most of this part of that market was mobile so far, so people playing on very simple devices. Now they're transferring to PC. It's also they're getting rich, though in layers, but still, even if the rich part is smaller part of their population, that's good enough. And we could also see that the commercially Chinese companies such as Tencent and NetEase, they are just acquiring most of the APs and studios, and you can see it even in Poland. We have already both of these Chinese giants invested in a couple of studios. So they also charted the direction. They know that if you want to own the future, you need to control the content, and the content is games, because nothing else matters. Games who will watch these movies on Netflix forever? They're getting very repetitive. While with the games, I'll give you another number. Do you know how many movies are made monthly, globally? Any guess in terms of numbers? They say it's roughly 700 movies. So 700, maybe 800 movies are made monthly across the world. There is 60 to 70 games made daily. Released, new games released. So, that's the disproportion. And then the movies are getting problematic because it takes time, and games, technically it takes longer to create games, but there's so many of them coming that only this year, 2024, we got 20,000 new games released over Steam, which shows the potential, right? So you need to be there if you want to control these people, and maybe control is not a great word, especially in an aspect of China, but still you need to at least try to influence them, right? And that is the most influential medium and the channel of the communication, I would say.
I would say try to engage, because at least, engaging, and one of the examples of Western developers trying to engage with the Chinese community was actually World of Warcraft mentioned before, right? And Mists of Pandaria.
Yeah, well, Blizzard was one of the first that noticed the amount of Chinese players gold mining there, and implemented this very basic, I would say now, thing, which was the add-on called Mists of Pandaria, where there was a new faction introduced, which was pandas, right? And everyone loves pandas, but in China they have a special status, of course. And it was a a gesture towards this community. So everyone, but it was pretty clever because that was specific Chinese thing, panda, but it also didn't, it wasn't frightening for the rest of the world, right? Everyone, there was cuddly little pandas, everyone loved them, so yeah. And that's the next thing that everyone now is adding. There is always a playable hero, and for the Chinese market it is important also to address their history, so if you're making historical games, they need to be included there as well.
Yeah, and to close up with one example, we actually, for one of the developers that we are working with, we advise them to implement actually Wukong, the character based on Black Myth Wukong, like 2 years before it even came out, because it's one of the most influential figures as far as Chinese culture, history, literature is concerned, and it resonated really well with the community. I'd like to pause for a second, and because we'll be about to summarize, and leave you with one anecdote before we move to takeaways. So, you know Neuralink. How many of you in the audience know what Neuralink is? Neuralink. Okay, so Elon Musk's implants, right? And one of the first tests that he did was actually, the guy who got installed the Neuralink, he didn't, call his mom, he didn't, go for a walk or anything like that. He played video games. He played Civilization, I think. Yeah, great game, right? And he excelled at it. So not only this is a good vehicle for communication with different groups of people, but this is the place where the most advanced technology is going to find implementation, usage in many ways, shapes, or forms.
Absolutely, I agree. I mean, that was the main thing we wanted to pass to you today, is that you should and you consider video games as a channel, as a place where there is lots of people, really living people that just are starving to engage with something. And providing them the content to engage is the great thing, especially with the advance of the new technologies. Like we had the great lectures on AI before, right? That's another thing that combines with video games greatly, and for sure will amplify even the advance of the gaming in the very near future. So treat them not as toys, not as things for nerds and just kids, but as a really serious medium that could be used for the serious things.
All right, so that would be about it. Thank you, Michał, and thank you everyone in the audience for listening.